Work session meeting. It is a few minutes past, I think it's 12:05. Our first matter of business is approval of our work session minutes from March 13th, 2025. May I have a motion and a second? All right, the motion has passed. Thank you, everybody. Oh, yeah. I asked for a motion and a second, and then everybody's voted now. Thank you. I'm assuming there was no discussion. Okay, perfect. I'm going to turn it over to our GM, Mr. Greenwood.
Thank you, Chair Ide. Very quickly off the top, I wanted to talk about the Project Snapshot tool. The board will recall that in November 14th of 2024, we had a demo of that very tool here with the board, and this is just confirmation that as of March 26th, it has gone live. The tool offers a way for customers and stakeholders to follow the progress of MARTA on our capital improvement program, provides basic timelines, budgets, spending progress for well over 160 projects across our four jurisdictions. So this is an interactive tool. It's got several filters on it. It's got a mapping feature, highlights specific locations of these projects. Projects can be filtered by category, so that's whether it's expansion or state of good repair or innovation. It can be filtered by project phase, so that's planning, design, construction, implementation. It can also be filtered by jurisdiction and whether or not it's a Moore MARTA or a Moore Clayton County program or Moore MARTA Atlanta program. So to access the tool, you go to the MARTA website, you go to the icon that says More Capital Projects, you select Project Snapshot Tool, and go from there. So we're going to be monitoring engagement of the tool and improve it based on feedback that we get from the customers, and all questions and comments about the tool should be directed to our customer service team through the website, itsmarta.com, or by calling 404-848-5000. Next up is Jim. Yep.
Madam Chair, I'm going to ask a question about this. How are we going to be socializing the existence of this tool? I'm talking about proactive, getting the word out,
Yep.
explaining how it's used.
Absolutely. I'll ask
I think
Stephen Parker to give you a briefing on that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Steve Parker, Chief of Staff. Jim, we've done a press release announcing that it's available, and we will have some of those out on a rolling basis to invite the public to participate and check out the site.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, I would welcome the opportunity to use my channels to get the word out as well. So if you could help me to do that, I would appreciate that.
We will do that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Next up, if Jennifer LaRosa is in the room, I'll ask Jennifer to come up and share with us a bit of a legislative wrap-up. It's been a busy time for her on the Hill.
Good afternoon, Chair Ide, Vice Chair Pond, and CEO Greenwood. I want to thank you for allowing me a few brief minutes to give you an update on the legislative session and where MARTA's priorities stand currently. As you're likely aware, this is the first year of a biennial session, so all legislation introduced this year remains viable for next year. Regarding tort reform, or SB 68, Governor Kemp's comprehensive tort reform bill, which passed both the Senate and House, is headed to the governor's desk for a signature. As you may be aware, this bill contains several provisions that impact MARTA's operations and liability framework. The bill introduces key changes that aim to streamline and balance the litigation process. However, two specific areas in SB 68 stand out as particularly relevant to MARTA's operations. The first is a seatbelt provision, which allows the failure of an occupant to wear a seatbelt to be considered in civil cases as evidence of negligence, comparative negligence, and apportionment of fault. This means that in the event of a claim involving MARTA vehicles, the failure to wear a seatbelt could be used as a factor of diminishing any recovery for damages. The second, the premises liability provision, set a higher standard of proof for the plaintiffs who seek to hold property owners and occupiers liable for negligent security. Notably, it includes clear guidelines on when an owner can be held responsible, such as an injured party was a trespasser or if the incident didn't occur on the property. While SB 68's passage represents a step forward for us, we recognize that these changes may not fully address MARTA's specific needs. As we move forward, we'll leverage this progress to educate and advocate for additional protections and caps that are tailored to MARTA's operations. Our efforts next year will focus on securing even more targeted reforms, such as caps and damages or specific forms of immunity for MARTA as the only transit entity in the state that does not currently have any level of immunity. With respect to our bus rapid transit camera legislation, we had a measured degree of success this year with the bill advancing further than it has up to this point, and I want to thank everyone internally and externally on those efforts. This bill passed out of the House Transportation Committee unanimously and out of the House chamber with a 145 to 22 vote. It then went over to the Senate Transportation Committee and passed out of that committee 7-2, and then was referred to the Senate Rules Committee, where there was every indication it would not make it out of that particular committee and onto the floor. However, the bill was ultimately placed on the agenda by Senate Majority Leader Steve Gooch and passed out of the Senate Rules Committee and on the agenda. Unfortunately, due to high volume of legislative priorities in the Senate chamber, it did not make it to a vote. The legislation remains in the current posture of tabled in the Senate chamber until next session. At that point, it can be called up for a vote at any time, and we're prepared to revisit and push for important measure next legislative session. It's also worth noting that no camera legislation passed this year. The school zone camera, which was sort of a hot topic and a much conversation, that was passed by substitute as amended by the House and now awaits for an agree or an assist in the House chamber or Senate chamber for next year. And I'll take any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for all the work you've done these past few months. It's been a lot of effort. We appreciate the updates. Chief Greer is going to come up and join us and talk to us about the first quarter MPD update.
Thank you, Kylie. Good morning, Chair members of the board. I'm Scott Crayer. I have the distinct pleasure of leading a best-in-class police department in the United States called the MARTA Police Department. I wanted to give you an update on the last 3 months. Slides, here we go. If you don't know, we report to the UCR, the Uniform Crime Report, through the state of Georgia. And we have 7 Part 1 crimes that we report every year. And they compare that to other jurisdictions, both transit and regular police departments around the country. And that really affects a lot of things, value of property, whether or not companies want to move in, move out. So that UCR guideline is very important, not only to us, but to the entire region. So we do this report every day. Comes out to the entire staff of MARTA, so everybody gets a chance to take a look at where we are. So I'm going to show you where we are. The snapshot at the end of March. The important column is all the way to your right. This is a daily report, so you have the 7-day report. Then you have your what we call the 28-day report in the middle, and then the year-to-date column on the right-hand side. And as you can see, at the end of March, we had a huge reduction of 35% compared to last year. I think that stands a little bit of recognition of the men and women of our department and how hard they've been working this year. And I'll go into what we talked about in just a minute about that. The only column we saw the little increase in was larceny others, and that's a raw number of 4. So we're going to continue to strive to keep this at 35 or better, and we'll update you as we move along throughout the year. Transit assaults. This year, as you know, we had a bus operator homicide at the beginning of the year. I think it shed some light on the ability of our transit operators and workers to get out there and really report what they're seeing on a day-to-day basis. I think there became a complacency that, well, this is just the way it happens, I'm not going to report it. So we saw a huge increase in reported cases this year so far than we have in the past. That's why you see the raw number of 12 increase. And those are what, there's 2 categories, major and non-major. Major meaning they went to the hospital or had a significant injury. The good thing is we didn't have any this year. The reason why the bus operator homicide is not on here and not on the homicide report earlier is the UCR is a calendar year, and sometimes the UCR will go into the next previous year by a couple of years based on the calendar every year. So that homicide was counted in 2024, so we didn't just not count it, it was counted in 2024. Some of the things we're trying to do to mitigate this is Mr. Wright and I are working on ways that they can not have confrontation with customers, and then we can look at the data as it's collected on fare evasion on our buses, because that's where we see the majority of these is confrontation with bus operators. So what we'll do is we'll take that information and then we can push resources to those routes that have the biggest number of fare evasion and conflict. So we got together with the team in January, and we realized back in 2020, COVID hit, and we kind of had a standoffish way of policing. For the first 3 years into COVID, everybody was worried about their health, as they should be. So we had a very standoffish policing method. And I told them those days are over. Okay, COVID's over. We got to get back to basics. So as you see in these numbers, January, February, and March, we've had over 1,100 additional arrests than we had last year. 1,100. 1,200 suspensions more than we had last year, same time period. Calls for service, over 2,600 calls for service more than we had last year. A lot of those are self-initiated by the police. And of course, reports taken, we took over 1,200 more reports in this 3 months than we did last year. So they're working their tails off. Somebody asked at a board meeting about CCTV and its advantages to crime fighting and to MARTA. I'm going to give you 3 examples just this year. January 20th, we had a victim attacked while sleeping in her vehicle at Indian Creek. We were able to identify this individual through CCTV coverage at the station with his vehicle information also. Created the BOLO on the 21st, put him in jail on the 22nd. Another one, March 23rd, assaulted a female with a glass bottle. Created a BOLO the next day using CCTV coverage. He was arrested on the 27th, and when he was arrested, we found out he was also wanted for a similar assault on MARTA property back in 23. April 1st, victim was assaulted at Peachtree Center Station, utilizing our camera system, created a BOLO the same day, and we arrested him on April 2nd. So these are just really good examples of how important our CCTV cameras are. We use them every day. We also just stood up our real-time crime center this week, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but vital. This is really vital to the safety and security of our system. So what we've done so far this year, we happen to win another TSA Gold Standard Award in February. That's 17 categories of security and emergency preparedness. It was graded by TSA. We stood up the Real-Time Crime Center. Yesterday was our final piece to that puzzle. We run this all day during revenue hours, and we have staff in there that constantly monitor our problem areas throughout the system. We completed our annual audit with the CALEA, no discrepancies in February. That's our national accreditation. And then GDOT approved our 2025 Security and Emergency Preparedness Plan. We've hosted over 15 community events, including career days at local schools and HBC school, along with steering wheel lot giveaways and a coffee with a cop events. We're finalizing our general order to participate in the City of Atlanta's Diversion Center that they just opened up. We had a great meeting with the leadership over there, and we had to create a general order to make sure we followed their rules to put people inside. We realized our bus and rail facilities needed some work on security, so we tasked our emergency preparedness unit to start those audits. And in the process, we applied for a congressionally directed spending grant to help us fund those improvements once we identify them. And then, of course, staffing's a huge issue for not only MARTA, but for all police departments. And back in 2018, if you were around, MARTA went to Puerto Rico and brought back 15 brand new police officers. Of those 15, we still have 11 working for us. That's pretty good. You don't see that often these days. So we did it again. We went down March 9th, have almost 40 applications now from military and police officers that work there. And then we go back at the end of the month and we'll finalize everything they need while we're there, and then we'll be able to hand them an offer letter before we leave the country. So speaking of staffing, if you don't know, Post, who regulates our training for police officers, made the decision, rightfully, to go from the minimum of 11 weeks to be certified to 21 weeks, more than doubling a lot of this training that were required. So that means we can only put a couple of classes through every day. So that puts more stress on us. Right now we have 15 officers in various stages of the police academy. And then I've got two waiting to go next week, and then 3 more scheduled for July. Hopefully that number will continue to increase as we recruit and hire some new folks. Thanks to Kylie, Kevin, and LaShonda's help and Kessie Dorner's help, we were able to work on the comp package for our police officers, because last year, in the last 6 months of 2024, we lost over 30 police officers to other jurisdictions. 13 of those officers have already come back. So we're continuing to work on that, and I think that's going to help us tremendously as we move forward. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Chair, I'd just like to start by thanking you, Chief. It's linked. So we saw 1,100 more arrests, 1,200 more suspensions, and a 35% reduction in Part 1 crimes. It doesn't take a math genius to figure out that you're just putting the work in. The CCTV, the BOLO, the RTCC, the Real-Time Crime Center. And I will say that this weekend I was in Austin at an American Public Transportation Association meeting, and probably 3 or 4 times in 3 or 4 different rooms, they're talking about MARTA Police and specifically your use of the drone program and how you've been talking to the rest of the country in terms of how to bring that up together. So thank you for your leadership, thank you for your results, and keep going.
Certainly all due to the women and men of the department. They're out there doing the work every day.
Ms. Scott.
Hi. I have a couple questions, and I'm glad Carly mentioned the meeting in Austin, because part of that was presentation from the emerging leaders. Has MARTA participated in creating projects for APTA?
We've actually won 2 APTA Gold Star Awards in the last 2 years for the drone program, and then for our partnership with the Atlanta Police Department on the bicycle patrol. So we've won 2 in the last 2 years.
They also have a program called the Emerging Leaders,
Yes.
which is part of, they're working on 26 right now. And what I've noticed is that they have quoted or interviewed MARTA for several of the Emerging Leaders programs for 26, having interviewed MARTA. So I'm wondering if the police department is putting together an Emerging Leaders project. Why are you smiling? You're smiling. I'm excited.
Good morning, Ms. Scott. As you pointed out, Chief Crayer and his team have been very active on the front lines. And as you may know, MARTA participated heavily with Emerging Leaders through APTA when they first started their programming. In an effort to address budgetary constraints, our learning and development team developed our own Emerging Leaders program. So we have an in-house program now that we use to develop our leaders. So we have not been participating in recent years in the APTA program, but we have a well-designed program in-house that we use to provide development across all divisions.
So that if you participate in the APTA program, it would benefit us nationally to be aware of what we're doing on a local level. And then my other question is, also across the country, several transit agencies have implemented bulletproof glass for the drivers. I know there's a project going on in the Carolinas at this time with their transit agency. Is this something we've looked at?
I'm almost positive Mr. Wright is looking at all different types of ways to protect the drivers, including that.
Yeah, we've talked about bullet-resistant laminate, which is a lot less weighty and doesn't distort the view. The thing about bulletproof glass is, as a driver, when you look to the right or to the left, you don't want rarefaction of light to be affected from a safety perspective. We have been talking with New Flyer about improvements that the industry is asking them to make. So it is a slow walk process, but we're definitely a part of the conversation.
And I've used the word glass because that's what they're saying, but bulletproof period for protection of the drivers. Because I've heard this in several national meetings with drivers from organized labor. So I wondered if it
may
was
be
something.
it may be a colloquialism, bulletproof versus bullet resistant, and that may actually be a legality more than anything else. But same idea, same product, same conversation, and Marta's at the table.
And then in regards to the policemen coming back, my last question, has our benefit package changed?
Yes.
Okay, so that speaks to itself. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Zagabe.
Thank you for the update, Chief. And, I love the use of technology that the team has adopted to help us on the journey. Just one question. I mean, one of the topics that comes up often is just fare evasion and kind of what's going on at the fare gates. Have we leveraged our technology, our CCTV in any way or are we thinking about
every day?
Okay.
We're anticipating the transition into the new fare gates and into the new payment system, and I think that's going to help us tremendously. Our citizens that don't want to pay fare are going to have a difficult time with the new fare gates. So I think that's going to help us. But just recently,
I was going to add something to it. Just recently, we actually are starting a pilot with one of the fare collection vendors now. We just shared some CCTV video with them on a kind of a learning model, AI learning model that will kind of help us to kind of determine what types of fare evasion, right? There's different types of ways that people could get in, right? So using the current video that we have and having software kind of trained to kind of detect what type of evasion there is, and then Chief and his team can go about making strategies to prevent that other than just the regular, what we're talking about, new equipment. So yes, we're starting that now. I've just got a little bit of news actually today from that vendor that said that they are making progress in that learning model with us on that technology.
and in the meantime, I just had our criminal investigations unit spend time looking. We look at blocks of time. So from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., they looked at every station, and we picked the 7 highest locations for fare evasion, and that's where we put our resources right now. And then we move that around as we see it. But it's a constant battle of whack-a-mole.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Yes, sir. And not to lose sight, every day, one of our officers gets into a fight over fare evasion. Every day. Where they're having to use force. So it's, yeah.
All right, Mr. Durrett.
Well, I'm no longer trying to chastise people when I see that happening. Chief, I saw 44 vacancies right now out of what is our workforce ideally. 44 out of?
Well, if Kevin Hurley allows me, it'll be about 100 more. But the budget will drive that as we move. I need to fill those first. We're significantly lower than we were in 2019, 2018.
I understand.
But I think with technology and with using data and not just feeling, we're putting the right people in the right places, so we're able to combat the crime with less people. But to be safe, we still need additional resources in that realm. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Ms. Hartage.
I just want to say thank you to all the police. And, I know I text you every time I'm on a train or a bus. I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. But, another set of ears and eyes never hurts. So I appreciate all they're doing, and I know you all are spread really thin. So I appreciate all that I see happening, because I do see a lot of good, and there's always opportunities for improvement, and I know you guys are continuing to make them. So thank you again, and make sure you tell your staff thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chief. And these, it's great to see these statistics, because I think all of us on the board, sometimes hear from people or see on social media the people's perception of the safety in the MARTA system. So it's really great to have the numbers to be able to respond in those situations and say, one, MARTA's always been safe, but two, it's a lot safer than it was a year ago, that we're moving more and more in the right direction. So I just want to say, give a round of applause to you and your team for everything that you've done. This was a fabulous report. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you were very gracious about being woman-splained too up there. So, Mr. Greenwood, back to you.
Oh, no. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. At this point, I'm just going to go over a few upcoming events. We're well aware of the board meetings and committee meetings that are in your information packets. I'll point out the Riders Advisory Council on May 7th in the atrium, and the MAC committee, which is virtual, on May 13th, as well as a few upcoming APTA meetings. We have the Legislative Conference on May 18th, the board members seminar on July 19th, and the Transform Conference on September 14th. Chair, I'll return the floor to you.
Thank you. Do we have items for executive session? All right.
Yes, Chair, we have litigation and real estate items for executive session.
All right. May I have a motion and a second? Oh, Ms. Scott?
Madam Chair, please forgive me. I meant to add something regarding the snapshot tool. Mr. Durrett's comment about using his process. Would we also be able to look at using the jurisdictional newspapers?
Yes,
that
absolutely.
Also,
Yeah.
such as those that are specific to the areas that MARTA served.
Yeah, it was a bit of a soft launch because there are a lot of intricacies, but we are increasing in our confidence in the product, and so now we're at the point where it's out there, it's public, and all channels available to us are welcome in terms of spreading the good news.
Right. I think it would be great if we reach out to those newsletters as well as newspapers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. All right, may I have a motion and a second to go into executive session? All right, I see Ms. Hartage, Mr. Durrett, is this a voice vote? All in favor, raise your hands. Okay, that's unanimous. We will now go into executive session. Ahead and call the April 10th, 2025 Board of Directors meeting to order. It's about 1:37. We had a longer than expected executive session, so sorry we're running a few minutes late. Mr. Hunt, did we have any public comments via email or voicemail?
We had no public comments via email or voicemail, and at present, nobody is signed up for, we have 4 people signed up
Okay.
for public comment in person.
All right, thank you so much. We will move on to our in-person public comment. The public will not be allowed to yield or donate time to other speakers. The public comment portion of the meeting will not exceed 45 minutes. If the 45-minute time limit is reached before public comments are completed, public comment will be suspended and the board meeting will commence. Public comments will resume at the end of the board meeting. And I'm going to call you all in order, and it is a 2-minute limit, and I ask if people really try to stick to that. I don't like to interrupt people, but we do need to stay on our schedule. First, we have Miss Angela Glover. What do I do? Up and see, you can pull the microphone a little bit closer to you, and it should be on. Let's see.
You would call me first, because I don't know how this works.
Yeah, that's perfect. That is it, and they're going to start
Yeah.
the timer there, and you have 2 minutes, and
Oh gosh,
you can get
that's really not enough. But I've just had some very interesting experience. I had a really bad day. I was like really exhausted, and I ended up getting a fair evasion citation. It was a very interesting experience. I had 24 rides on my card. I just was rushing and didn't scan my card right, and I had 1 minute to catch the train. It was my decision to just go with that. So now I have experienced the whole thing now. I had to go to court. I did an appeal. You know, everything went away when I got finished with it, but it was just a really big process. While I'm standing there, a habitual offender was coming in. They didn't want to go after him, you know. So that was, you know, it was really a difficult thing, and all because I was just tired and just wanted to catch that train. So that was, you know, one of my experiences, and I know it's become a really big problem. My station had a wonderful officer. He was pulled from my station. I think he did a very good job with that, because he actually interacted with people, and for whatever reason y'all decided to take him out of my station. So that was one thing. It's a few more things, and we don't really have time for everything I want to get into. I'm aging very fast, so I decided to go back and put the app back on my phone. It was slow and glitchy because I have a reduced fare option, which is not on your newer app. So I had to learn about the apps again. And I wish the apps was a lot better, because I'm now having to rely on that. You know, I knew that day I knew I had at least 4 rides, but I had 24 rides. So that's why kind of everything went away. I purchased rides with the intention of using them. I was just rushing. So.
Well, thank you for coming to share your experience with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Doug Nagy.
Good afternoon. I'm Doug Nagy. I live in Midtown and ride MARTA daily to DeKalb County. I've worked in 10 countries with McKinsey, transforming cities, companies, public agencies, and I've ridden transit daily across Asia and Latin America. MARTA is personal to me. It's how I get to work. It connects me to the city that I love. In the 1970s, MARTA's founders dreamed boldly. They built a rail system that rivals European metros in scale. But today, ridership is lower than before rail even existed. Fare revenue in 2024 has fallen to 1995 levels. So let me repeat that. Fare revenue for MARTA has fallen to 1995 levels, despite 30 years of inflation, 30 years of growth, and 30 years of expansion. We cannot continue pretending everything's okay when it's not okay. Still, I believe MARTA's best chapter is ahead. That's why I'm sharing a Back on Track 2025 plan, a memo with 12 actions this board can take to stabilize finances, win back riders, and rebuild a culture of excellence. This is the kind of brief you would get if you were on the board of Delta, of Home Depot, of Coca-Cola, and it's the type of memo and rigor that this board deserves. Thank you for your leadership. I encourage you to take a look at the memo, and there's 3 key actions on the first page. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Nagy, and everybody should have a hard copy of Mr. Nagy's letter. Next, we have Muna Muhammad.
Hello, my name is Mona Muhammad. It has been about 2 years since I've seen most of you guys. I missed you. I'm just here to kind of see what the new update will be for the More MARTA plan. A lot of things have changed with that plan. A lot of projects have completely changed. Everything is changing. Inflation has gone up, so you know the budgets are different. And my biggest, I guess, comment today would be, are you guys intending to give the city of Atlanta and the people, the riders, a new plan? Because I do not believe MARTA is on track to actually implement the plans that were presented to us in I believe it was 2012 or 2017 with that penny tax proposal. So I do think it would be great if MARTA does make an effort for the community, for those riders and the city to see what is the new plan, because I don't believe you guys are on track to reach your target goals. You guys are not doing the same projects. Even with the MARTA project for Campbellton Road, I was informed that they are now adding a bridge from the Greenbrier Mall to the barge station, and they said that that would be further along in the project. But it's like, okay, the More MARTA plan for Campbellton Road switch, that you guys don't need all the money that was expected to give to you guys anymore because we're going with BRT, but yet you guys are doing something bigger, and that funds could still be used for Campbellton Road. I will still forever advocate for Campbellton. If it is equity that you guys are going for, those funds can still be used for that Campbellton Road corridor and does not need to be shared for other communities, because Campbellton Road has shown you guys that our ridership is not going down. It's still, if I'm not mistaken, the second most used bus route. So we're using it. Investing in the community will bring more business owners. It would be equitable to everyone. So that's all I have to say. I'm excited for the More MARTA plan. I do see that you guys are about to start doing more groundbreaking things. And yeah, keep it up.
Thank you so much. And our last speaker is Ben, and I can't quite read the last name. Ben Dam?
Okay, hello, can you hear me? Hello, my name is Ben Dam. I live and work in Midtown. And today I represent just myself. I made a comment to the ATL board last week about hope, but I'm not sure I can say the same about this board today. Here are the few reasons. MARTA has made unfortunate headlines about delays in projects, bus redesign, BRT, LRT, 5 points, you name it. And so it doesn't look like there are going to be any new transit lines that be commissioned in the near future. And that's very sad. To the point that I'm wondering if there's going to be any major shakeups in the MARTA network by the time I die. Meanwhile, there's so many basic things also that are off. Perception of safety, and that was also mentioned last week in the public comments on the Express redesign, for when people connecting from Express had concerns about that on the trains. I don't need to mention what these details are. Low service levels as well, especially on the weekends and signal tracking, makes the service barely usable, and I would like for that to change as well. And also non-working technology, not the least, it's still a gamble to figure out if the bus I'm planning to take and to go somewhere in town is actually going to show up, or if during special events they're going to be like extra service that's not indicated on the boards. But that's just a few things. Honest communications with the agency regarding to these things would be very much appreciated. So I hope I'm wrong about everything I said. and that Marta will work in earnest to project a better image of itself to both locals and visitors that are in upcoming large events, because we need all the support that we can get on that. With that, thank you all for your dedicated work, and have a good day.
Thank you so much. That concludes the public comment portion of our meeting. Next item is to approve the minutes of our March 13th, 2025 board meeting. May I have a motion and a second? If there's no discussion, everybody please vote. All right, the minutes have been approved. Thank you. For our board committee reports, we're going to start with the business management report. Mr. Pond is out, so Mr. Durrett will make that presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the Business Management Committee met on Thursday, March 27th, 2025, and approved the following resolutions. A, resolution authorizing a modification and contractual authorization for the Trapeze Master Agreement, RFP P34149. B, a resolution authorizing a modification and contractual authorization for the Diverse Fiber Routing Network Infrastructure, P40186. And C, resolution authorizing a modification and contractual authorization for General Counsel and other legal services, RFP P46721. I request approval of these resolutions.
All righty. Vote is open on that. All right, those resolutions are approved.
Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Durrett. Next, we're going to move to planning and capital programs.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the Planning and Capital Programming Committee met on Thursday, March 27th, 2025, and approved the following resolutions. A, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for MARTA Fresh Produce Market, IFB B 5061. B, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for temporary relocation facility for MPD K9 unit, RFPP P 50686, utilizing the Federal General Services Administration. C, resolution authorizing final acceptance of contract CP B3144B, Perry Bus Facility, Security Access and Site Lighting Upgrades. D, resolution authorizing final acceptance of contract CP B2020-A, CCTV System Expansion. E, resolution authorizing final acceptance of contract RFP P3122-3, Standby Power Services Generator Replacement. And finally, F, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for A&E Design Services for Clayton County South Lake Bus Rapid Transit System Alignment and Airport Connectivity, AE 5043-3. I request approval of these resolutions.
Thank you. The vote is open. Right, those items have been approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee also received the following briefing. G, upcoming construction impacts, Indian Creek DXO replacement. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Our next committee is Operations and Safety. Mr. Worthy.
Madam Chair, the Operations and Safety Committee met on Thursday, March 27, 2025, and approved the following resolutions. A, resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of indefinite quantity construction contract services, RFP P50683. B, resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of construction management for indefinite quantity construction contract services, RFP 50684. C, resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of CDL and ELDT training services, RFP P50682. D, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for transit scheduling support, LOA L50564. E, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for professional services for Martyr Police Psychological Pre-Employment Assessments, letter of agreement LOA L50636. F, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for maintenance of way and operation support services, RFP P50405. And G, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for the supplemental professional services for bus operations, RFP P50574. I request approval of these resolutions.
Thank you. The vote is now open.
Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Those 7 items have been approved. And we are now at External Relations. Ms. Jones.
Madam Chair, the External Relations Committee met on Thursday, March 27, 2025, and received the following briefings. A, media impressions for November 2024 through February 2025 and 2025 communication strategy. B, 2025 marketing and sales strategy. C, legislative update. D, building stronger relationships, 2025, public engagement goals and strategies. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you so much. And our last report comes from the Audit Committee. Ms. Hardage. Okay.
Madam Chair, the Audit Committee met on Thursday, March 20th, 2025, and received the following briefings: internal audit activity, information security, and KPMG report. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hunt, there were matters coming out of Executive Committee?
Yes, we have 6 items coming out of executive session. I'm going to lead with the litigation items. If we could have a motion to approve a settlement in the amount of $10 million in the Jaquez Wallace v. MARTA lawsuit.
All right, let's vote by hand. All in favor? All right. Any against? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you. Next item.
Madam Chair, I would also need a motion to approve a settlement in the amount of $5 million in the Katrina King Wilson versus MARTA lawsuit.
All right, that was a motion by Worthy, second by Durrett. Let's vote by hands for approval. All right, any opposed and abstentions? Yep.
Madam Chair, I'd need a motion to approve a settlement in the amount of $1.5 million in the Sabrina Hardison versus MARTA lawsuit.
All right, another vote by hand. Yays? And did you get that? That was Powers and Williamson. All right. Any abstentions? Mr. McMurray. All right, next item.
Next item is the need for a motion to approve the settlement in the amount of $375,000 in the matter of Clay Stark versus MARTA.
All right, motion by Hardage, second by Williamson. Hands for approval. And Mr. McMurray, I'm assuming you're another abstention. Thank you. Next item.
And the final litigation item is need for a motion to approve a settlement in the amount of $275,000 in the Pauline Williams versus MARTA lawsuit. Excuse me.
All right, Mr. Durrett, Ms. Hardage, show of hands for votes in favor. That is unanimous with Mr. McMurray. I'm assuming you are abstention again. All right.
And the final item is a real estate item. I'll read the resolution into the record. It's a resolution authorizing the exchange of a MARTA parcel D2125 with Spring Street Atlanta LLC for the construction of a new station entrance into MARTA's GWCC/CNN Center Station, Fulton County, Atlanta, Georgia. Whereas Spring Street Atlanta LLC, the developer, has requested that MARTA participate in an exchange of land and air rights via development agreement, and whereas MARTA will exchange approximately 33 non-contiguous parcels collectively known as Parcel D2125 to Spring Street Atlanta LLC in exchange for the developer's construction of a new station entrance into MARTA's GWCC/CNN Center Station, and whereas the exchange will occur in order to facilitate the development of Centennial Yards, a $6 billion, 12 million square foot, 50-acre mixed-use project in the Gulch to the east of the Centennial Olympic Park Drive. And whereas MARTA's ownership rights in D2125 were appraised, and therefore be it resolved that the general manager, CEO, or his delegate is hereby authorized to execute the development agreement documents between MARTA and Spring Street Atlanta LLC for the exchange of MARTA parcel D2125 to Spring Street Atlanta LLC for the developer's construction of a new station entrance into the GWCC/CNN Center Station for the value of $5.5 million.
All right, that's a motion by Mr. Durrett, a second by Ms. Hartage. Is there any discussion that we didn't have an executive session, that anybody has questions? No. All right. Let's vote by hand with approval. And that looks unanimous.
Madam Chair, I have no further.
Thank you so much. All right. Are there any other matters from any board members today? Oh, Mr. Zagabe.
Just a quick matter. This is more of a request for our committee meetings, but do you think we can get an update on Rapid A Line and just kind of what's going on there? I saw a few news articles that came out, and maybe just a good forum in the Planning and Capital Program Committee to hear the latest and make sure folks know where we're at with the project and how we're feeling about timeline there.
Absolutely. I think I saw a pre-brief on that, so that may actually be already in the works, but yeah, we'll definitely keep you posted.
Thank you. And just to let my colleagues know, we heard from Mr. Wright last month at committee meetings about bus metrics, which was helpful, I think, for the matter that had come before us. I've asked that the next committee meetings, which will be the last committee meetings before we talk about budget, that those metrics that we get for information, that they be up on slides so we can make sure that if anybody has questions about metrics before we go into the budget, that we also get an update on rail and streetcar and mobility. So we're going to tack that on to include that as part of our committee meeting this month. If there is nothing else, anything else from you, Mr. Greenwood?
Nothing else.
All right, then we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody.